Hello, everybody. Welcome to this episode of Beware the Board, a horror podcast where we watch a randomly selected horror movie every single week. I'm Bob.
And I'm Ben.
Hey, Ben.
Welcome back.
Yeah, welcome back.
Part 2.
I said random, but we know what we're watching this time because we're immediately doing this right after recording the other one.
Yeah.
So, hi, everybody.
What's up?
No news today, by the way. I'm skipping that portion.
For us, it's the same day.
Yeah, same day. Nothing new has happened. The
Oh,
only update
you know what
is...
I didn't mention?
What?
The Killer Clowns from Outer Space game is out.
Oh, shit.
So
I just said I was going to skip the news portion of the podcast. What's wrong with you? Animal.
Go kill some people. Not in real life.
Not in game.
But as a clown.
A
From
killer
outer
clown.
space.
Yeah. Anyway, what are we doing, Ben?
Watching Evil Dead 2 from 1987.
87? That's a long-ass time.
It's exactly 6 years, some might even say.
Okay. I don't know why you had to be so specific with it.
Well, 81, 87.
Same day, though? You said exactly. Okay, bro. Don't just, give me a blank stare. Stop. I'm trying to have a good time, Ben.
Are you ready to get into it?
I guess.
Description. Groovy.
Is this Groovy?
Yep.
Is that... Okay. I was curious which one of these movies would introduce this whole Groovy thing.
1 hour and 24 minutes long.
It's shorter than the first one?
Wasn't the first one like the same thing?
It was 125.
Oh.
It's a minute shorter.
So basically the same thing.
Not the same
Just
thing.
how it's been basically 6 years.
I'm going to throat chop you.
Review scores. 7.7 out of 10 on IMDb. Tomato meter, 88%.
Damn.
Audience score, 89%.
Is that higher than the first one?
Yes.
Interesting.
It's also rated R.
Instead of NC-17.
Yeah.
Which might be a bad thing.
What, the R rating?
Yeah.
Depends.
Because, well, actually, now I think about it, the first one definitely deserved that NC-17 rating.
There was distinctly some things that
Oh, well, that also helped.
maybe went too far.
But I'm not even talking about that. I'm talking about all the other stuff.
Just, yeah, how graphic it was.
Yeah.
Awards, 1 win and 5 nominations. Notable actors, Bruce Campbell as Ash Williams. Not a voice acting role this time, but he played Elvis Presley in Bubba Hotep.
Okay.
Oh,
I don't even know what that
have
is.
you never heard of Bubba Hotep?
No.
There's some films that you're like, this is a ludicrous concept, and I love it.
Okay.
That is one of those films.
Okay. Well, you said he was Elvis Presley?
Yes.
And the movie was called Bubba Hotep?
Yep.
What the fuck is that?
Let me put it this way. He plays Elvis Presley in a retirement home because Elvis Presley faked his death.
Oh, that's sweet.
That's all you need to know about
That
the
sounds like
basic
an
concept.
Awesome movie.
There's obviously more going on, but that is one of the main selling points. Sarah Berry as Annie Noby. She was an onlooker in Chud 2, Bud the Chud.
Not Chud 2, Bud the Chud. When do we bring that up? That's the second time we brought that up on the podcast.
Was it on Day of the Dead, or was it on one of the Return? It was probably a zombie episode.
It was probably a zombie
'Cause-
episode.
Chud 2, Bud the Chud has one of the most catchy theme songs.
Oh,
They just
say,
say, Bud the Chud.
I know, because you mentioned that and you wouldn't stop doing it. It made me so angry.
It was probably Day of the Dead, because they have Bud in it, right?
Maybe. I don't remember.
Bud the
Stop.
Chud.
We're not doing this again. I'll kill you.
Do you know what Chud stands for?
No. Am I supposed to?
That's an acronym.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
Come here, you dingus?
I believe it's Subterranean Humanoid Underground Dweller. Chud.
But subterranean starts with an S.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure that's what it's supposed to be.
Subterranean? Cubterranean?
Dan Hicks as Jake. He was Skip and Darkman. Casey Wesley as Bobby Joe. She was Blair Kramer from One Life to Live. She was on 821 episodes from 1993 to 2013.
800 episodes?
Well, 821.
Sorry, you're right. The 21 was important. Holy shit.
Yeah.
That's so many.
Well, One Life to Live is a soap opera.
I gathered that from the 800 episodes from, 1993 to 2013?
Yep.
Fuck me. 20 years? How many episodes? That's so many episodes. Like a year.
Yeah. Denise Bixler as Linda. She was Janina in Crisis in the Kremlin. Snowy Winters as Dancer. She was a Rebel Room dancer in Great Balls of Fire. Richard Domier as Ed Getley. He was a linebacker in Teen Wolf. John Peaks as Professor Noby. He was Dr. Charles Foster in Six Souls. And then Lou Hancock as Henrietta Noby. She was Lucy Peters in Miracle Mire. Directors, Sam Raimi again.
He's back.
You might know him from Spider-Man 2002.
Yeah.
Once again, really need to affirm that fact.
He was also in something we watched.
Sam Raimi?
Yes.
I think you're thinking of his brother, Ted Raimi.
You're so right. I was thinking of
Who
Ted
was
Raimi.
in... Do you remember?
Wasn't it a Halloween film?
No. Better.
Better?
Let me put it this way. It was a little incestuous. Right? Wasn't he in Blood Rage?
No.
He was the guy at the drive-in selling condoms in the bathroom in Blood Rage.
That's not from Blood Rage.
Was that not?
No, but he was the guy selling condoms in the bathroom. What film was that? And why do I think it was Halloween? I feel like it was like Halloween 5 or something. Right?
Blood Rage.
He's in Blood Rage?
I told you, you bastard. Don't doubt me again.
Well, no, he's not. That's
Ted
what?
Raimi, condom salesman, Blood Rage.
Oh my god.
No, that's obviously Ted Raimi and not Sam Raimi.
Not Sam Raimi, but they are brothers.
Some might even say they're related.
Isn't that what I just said?
Well, you said they're brothers. I said they might be related.
But that's how that works.
Well, not necessarily. You could be like stepbrothers.
But they're still. But they. Please continue before I kill you.
All right. So there's actually 2 writers this time.
Oh, that's cool.
First, we have Scott Spiegel. Not sure if you know him, but he wrote From Dusk Till Dawn 2, Texas Blood Money, not the original one.
I was saying, I know that name.
And obviously, the other writer is Sam Raimi,
Yeah.
who this was like kind of a mind-blowing fact. I was looking for other stuff he's written. He wrote for Xena Warrior Princess.
I didn't know that. That's cool.
But it looks like he might be semi-responsible for making the character Xena Warrior Princess, because he looks like he's credited on like all the stuff.
Really?
Yeah.
That's rad.
So remember when I was talking about that short, Within the Woods,
yeah.
and how it was made by Raimi Campbell and the producer Robert G. Tappert?
Mm-hmm.
I believe he is the guy who owns and created Hercules and the spin-off Xena Warrior Princess.
That's cool.
So that's how Raimi works on it. I think Campbell also worked on both of those things.
That makes
Because
sense.
they're all, buddies. But yeah, I didn't know he was associated with that property.
I didn't know that either. That's cool.
Budget's estimated at, do you want to take a guess?
Well, the last one was what? 310,000?
This is a real movie. That's your hint.
3 million.
Ooh, close.
Ooh.
3.6
Damn. I was close.
estimated. Box office though, 5.9.
I mean, they made money, but not really.
They did, but they didn't even make double.
Yeah. That sucks.
Also, compared to what, 29?
Yeah. Off of a $310,000 film?
50. 350,000.
Was it
I
350,000?
believe so.
Oh, okay.
Still much worse.
Yeah.
Country of origin, United States. Tagline, Dead by Dawn.
Dead by Dawn. Jesus Christ.
Great one. I like it. Better than, like, the Stephen King quote, because it's an actual tagline this time.
I mean, yeah, but this is a real film.
Yeah, it is. All right, so this is kind of a spoiler, but I'm going to give it to you anyways, because otherwise we're going to watch this movie and you're going to be kind of confused and like, what the fuck?
Okay, can I ask that maybe you just let me be confused?
Are you sure?
How bad will it be?
It might be kind of bad.
Would it be more fun?
It might be funny. You just want me to leave it?
I don't know, because I
It's only for the beginning parts of this movie.
You know what, Ben? I want to go into this one completely unspoiled.
Okay. Well, then that's what we're going to do.
Maybe I made a mistake, but that's okay.
It's, whatever. I'll just have to give you that point after the film. In either case, what I do want to note here before we get into the movie is that you couldn't tell by the simple fact that this is in the Cabin in the Woods category.
Yeah.
This is still like a cabin film.
Oh, sweet.
I don't think that's much of a spoiler. That's why we don't have
The third one?
the third one, Army of Darkness, on here, because it's not. And what I do want to mention here is that the original proposal for this film was actually a lot wilder than this movie ended up being.
Really?
in fact, the original proposal would end up being used for Army of Darkness.
Oh, that's actually really sweet.
And then the film that this would end up being is different.
Okay.
Closer to the original. Again, it's a cabin movie, if that makes sense. All right? Cool deal?
Yeah.
Then I think we're going to just watch the movie.
Oh, man. Okay. Shit. I'm really excited. I wanted to talk about this before we start the movie, but
And I'll probably give you that fact I was about to give you right now as we watch the movie. So,
I'm sorry.
it's fine.
No, you seem mad.
I'm not. You're just... I know I'm going to tell you, like, legitimately 2 minutes into the movie. You're going to ask me what's happening, and I'm going to
No,
tell
but
you.
I don't want you to. That's what I'm saying.
I'm going to have to.
No, okay, look, the reason I'm asking you not to tell me is because I'm actually very, very excited to watch this movie, and I want the authentic experience of being confused with it for the first time.
I know. And 2 minutes in, you're going to ask me what the fuck is happening, and I'm going to tell you.
That's okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So, you ready?
Yeah, Ben, I'm ready.
Okay.
Yeah, well, see you guys in a minute. Hi, everybody. Welcome back. We just finished watching The Evil Dead 2.
I don't believe it's The Evil Dead 2. It's Evil Dead 2.
It's so it's The Evil Dead.
It's The Evil Dead,
Evil
Evil
Dead-
Dead, Army of Darkness, Evil Dead Rise.
That's fucking stupid.
You're fucking stupid.
Thanks, bro.
You're welcome. Don't complain when they all have different titles. That's all I'm saying.
I'm gonna complain because the naming
No,
convention is enraging.
no.
It's The Evil Dead, but it's not The Evil Dead 2.
Bob, what franchise do you really like that has 3 movies that have the same exact name?
None of your business.
Exactly my point.
That has nothing to do with anything.
These are at least
Irrelevant.
distinctly different titles.
Only slightly.
And also, The Evil Dead does make sense because it's like saying the one, and then Evil Dead 2 makes sense because it's not The Evil Dead 2.
Sure.
Right? Cool deal. On that note, did you like the movie?
Yeah. No, I liked it. I don't know if anyone expected me not to like it, but I liked it a lot. I had a fucking blast.
Okay.
That was very good.
I think I
Very
said
much fun.
this on the last episode, so The Evil Dead, where I was like, yeah, a lot of people like the second one. I think
Yeah.
the best. And, I mean,
And you know what? I get it.
I think you fall into that camp. Until
We'll
we watch
see.
Army of Darkness, and then...
It's probably going to be Army of Darkness, just based off of what I know.
Knowing you, yeah, it might be Army of Darkness.
Yeah.
Okay, well, on that note, I'm going to give a brief rundown of the kind of plot, description kind of thing that I normally do, and then we'll get into spoiler territory. As always, we recommend you go watch the film before we give anything away, because the best way to watch this is blind.
Well,
Or at least blind with that little factoid I'm going to tell you, but I'm going to tell you that right after the description if you want to stay tuned for that.
yeah.
Bob decided to watch it without that, and Bob, what was your reaction going into the film?
I was fairly confused.
Shocker.
Still am actually a little bit
Shocker.
after watching the entirety of the film.
Yeah, so the beginning can be a little confusing. You can still get through it and enjoy the film, as Bob has
Yeah.
clearly done.
I recovered.
But having a brief rundown, I think, helps. With that being said, what is this film about? Well, Ash is still in a cabin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh my god.
No, so Ash is in the cabin, and the owner of the cabin, the family comes, and the person who owns the family is the same person who made the
Person who
recording.
owns the family.
Owns them. No, the person who owns the cabin is the same person who did like the recording, so the professor that summoned the demons in the first movie, as well as this one. And they come, and then that whole group kind of gets wrapped up in fighting the Deadites
With Ash.
with Ash. Sound good? Cool?
Yeah.
Cool. All right, we're going to get into spoilers. So, spoiler warning from here on out. But I'm going to give that factoid I was going to give right at the beginning to explain some confusion. But Bob, before we say that factoid, why don't you explain to the audience why you were confused with the beginning of this movie?
Well, because it like changes the end of the previous film and like changes some of the setup for this film. Like that because like I expected it to do because normally when we watch films back to back, it's because they will end and then immediately start the second film, like they do in Halloween. Like Halloween 1 and 2 are back to back films. Rec and Rec Squared are back to back films. Like they follow each other very nicely. This sort of does a weird like recap thing at the beginning that changes the origins of how things happened in the previous film. It like retcons stuff that happened in the previous film, and it's weird.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I don't know how else to explain that.
Okay, so I think what Bob's trying to get at is the beginning of this film is basically weirdly identical to The Evil Dead,
Yeah,
just vaguely changed. Very specifically, it's essentially a recap of The Evil Dead in 5 minutes, except if only Linda, Ash's girlfriend, and Ash himself went to this cabin.
yes, exactly.
And then it's, mostly the same. Obviously, there's a lot of stuff missing because it's only them,
Yeah,
but it's identical. And then it goes up until the point where Ash gets, the thing comes through Ash through the door at the very end of the movie.
Mhm. It's the same sequence.
Yeah,
Eventually.
it's the same setup. So the first 5 minutes are essentially a recap that retcons a lot of stuff from The Evil Dead. And then the rest of the film, until the family who owns the cabin shows up, seems to rehash a lot of the elements from The Evil Dead as well, with like Ash losing his mind and stuff. And there's a couple reasons for these similarities and also for like the weird continuity stuff.
Mm-hmm.
So the reasons for the similarities between this movie and The Evil Dead, besides, it's being the same franchise, is that one of the film's financiers, I think one of the big financiers, his name's Dino De Laurentiis.
We've heard that name before.
I think we have. Probably. He's a financer. Anyways, he was basically insistent that this film be similar to the first one because they've proven that formula could work, essentially. So he wanted a cabin in the woods style horror film, very reminiscent of The Evil Dead, so he was more sure it would succeed. That's why the more wacky ideas that would be used for the Army of Darkness got shelved to the next film.
Okay.
And this film ends up being a cabin in the woods film, very similar to the first movie. So that's why there's some similarities. As for why like the first 5 minutes of this film rehash the original film and essentially kind of undoes some stuff or mucks up the continuity, that has to do with film rights.
Oh, man.
So essentially, my understanding of it is Sam Raimi kind of wanted to do a quick rehash of The Evil Dead to kind of like get audiences started so they know like what's happening.
Yeah, because I feel like if they just throw you in the deep end with this one, there's stuff you'd be missing, like context.
Yeah. So they couldn't start with the clip of like the Kandarian demon flying towards Ash because that'd be too confusing. And so his original idea was just to play clips from the original movie.
That makes sense.
But from my understanding is it's New Line Cinema, but someone owned the rights to the film.
Oh my god.
And he couldn't get like scenes from the film to put in this movie.
Mm-hmm.
And so they had to reshoot it.
Oh, I see.
And so it was easier to reshoot the sequences, not only condensed down, but only with Linda, because she's the most necessary character to Ash's like character arc.
Yeah.
And then since they were reshooting it, they kind of like redo some sequences a little bit. So that is why the beginning of this film is kind of a rehash and also like a remake.
Okay.
And so in some ways it makes this film both a combination of a remake and a sequel.
Yeah.
So kind of like a requel kind of thing going on.
Kind of sucks because like I want the first film to be completely canon.
Yeah, so here's the thing.
It is technically canon, I guess.
It is technically canon, and also, fair warning here, the end of this film and the beginning of Army of Darkness also don't line up exactly.
Oh, that sucks.
It's not as bad as this one, so there's no rehash kind of thing, but they don't line up exactly. It's not scene for scene.
Okay.
And that makes the timeline, especially for these 3 original Evil Dead films, iffy, right? And so I think you have to kind of go in your head, what's my timeline here, right? For me, I usually tend to just kind of blur them together in my minds because, like, I think they fit together pretty well as long as you squint a little bit.
Yeah. Like, it works, but I want it to be cleaner.
Because basically, the only thing that doesn't line up with the end of The Evil Dead and this movie is that the Necronomicon was burned.
Yep.
Which, to be honest, doesn't really matter because you don't really see it in this film.
True.
And then that there was other people in the cabin. But seeing as they're all, like,
dead,
melted and dead, also doesn't
matter.
Because, Linda's also decapitated in this movie. Spoiler, guys. And buried. And that's where she is in this movie, too. Yeah. So I do think they line up pretty well.
Yeah, I guess my disappointment comes from the fact that we've seen other films do this sort of thing, like back-to-back sequels, and make it flow super well and actually feel like kind of one big piece, and
Yeah.
that's really nice. And that's what I wanted coming into this, and the fact that it doesn't kind of sucks
Yeah, but like I said,
because I know it's possible.
I don't think they had rights to the film.
Yeah,
So
so it's outside of their control.
not only could they not show clips, I don't know if they could necessarily actually have it be technically the same film.
That's crazy.
Like, it's the same franchise, but I think there was some legal rights issues with being like, oh, yeah, this is the sequel kind of stuff.
huh?
Anyways, it's rights issues. That's why it's messy.
That
So,
sucks.
not
man.
exactly their fault. But I do think it is close enough that, you can connect them in your mind
Yeah.
and make it work as long as you squint. And I also think redoing kind of the Evil Dead in a little short blip at the beginning of this film functionally makes this one make more sense to an
does
audience
Functionally work a lot.
who wouldn't know it.
Because, like, they even start it with exposition instead, too. Like, it starts with exposition, and then you get the clips from Evil Dead.
Yeah.
And I actually really like that, because coming in, if you haven't seen the original film, you get the needed things that you need. And if you have seen the original film, it's just sort of like a nice refresher if you haven't seen it in a while.
And you have to remember that probably most people hadn't seen this film. So, yeah, it's the 80s.
Yeah.
So, drive-ins were still pretty big. But also, the first movie was small.
But also, the first movie was 6 years ago.
6 years ago. And also, it did big overseas.
Yep, not in America.
In America, in Canada, which is
Mhm.
where that $2.4 million number comes from. So probably they were expecting most people to have not seen the first one.
Yeah.
That's what I was going to say at the beginning.
Yeah. No, and I'm glad I didn't get it. I'm glad you didn't tell me, but I'm also glad you got to explain it all after too.
So with kind of that out of the way, I think we can get into discussing some of the actual parts of this film we liked, didn't like.
Yeah, sure.
Right off the bat, it's probably, besides the whole confusion with how this film starts, which I mean, I personally remember being confused because I was in the same boat as you where I was like, I don't know
Yep.
what's happening. Oh, it's just redoing the same film but different. The first thing I noticed, and I think it's the first thing most people notice, is that tonally this film is very different.
Oh, it's so much more wacky.
So the way I like to think about it is the first film is kind of a straight up horror movie. That's
Yeah,
what it is.
it feels a lot more grounded.
This film is, I don't want to say a dark comedy, but it's a comedic horror movie.
Mm-hmm.
Dark comedy to me feels like it's an actual comedy with dark elements.
Sure.
This is more of a horror movie with comedic elements. Most of that comes from Bruce Campbell.
Yes.
Just straight up. I think the writing's just as funny as it was in the first movie, but the tone switches almost entirely because Sam Raimi and Campbell both lean into heavily his ability to be just a great physical comedian.
Mm-hmm.
Bruce Campbell really throws his all into just wailing on himself and acting like a crazed guy, and
He gets annihilated in this film.
it just gives the whole film a very wacky, Looney Tune-esque feel.
It feels cartoonish, but in such a nice, fun way. Because while the first movie has this B movie charm that makes it funky and funny, this movie has production value and loses that charm, but then leans into the funny, so it works. And it's so entertaining.
Yeah, but it is a completely different tone.
It's wildly different.
And I'm going to bring this up now, I always have trouble comparing the two films
They're very different.
because they're just completely different genres, essentially.
Mhm.
Again, one is a horror movie and one is a horror movie with comedic elements.
Yeah.
But that's different, very different, because it is just such a different vibe. Not to mention the whole fact that this is definitely a big budget film
Yeah.
and not a B movie anymore.
And you can tell.
And you can tell. And I think one of the biggest giveaways for that are some of the production values on practical effects.
Yeah.
I think the one that really stands out to most people is how the Deadites look.
They look a lot different.
So the first film, when we talked about it a little bit, primarily pulls off the Deadite effects with it looks like makeup kind of stuff.
Mm-hmm.
But in this one, it's heavy prosthetics.
It's heavy prosthetics.
So the Deadites have, I'd say, a pretty standardized look throughout.
Mm-hmm.
But it is really a style that has prosthetics that emphasize like cheekbones
Yep.
and forehead ridge. to give people who are possessed a skull-like appearance.
Very like sunken.
Yeah, eyes and everything. It's really distinct. It's really different, though.
It's very different, and I don't know if I like it as much as the original film. And not because it looks bad, it's not the same way I want them to look. I prefer that like rotten look of the Deadites. They don't look as rotten. They look more like sallow and like sunken. I don't know if I like it.
Yeah, it's definitely a more, I almost want to describe it as cartoonish look about him in this film.
That's true. It's very exaggerated.
And I think it fits the tone of this film better.
That's fair.
Than the more realistic kind of wilted, rotted look of the original Deadites. But I do think the big difference for the switch up, besides the fact that this one looks more polished, is that this film goes a lot heavier on stop motion animation.
Yeah.
Particularly like claymation stuff for some of the Deadites because, they had a higher budget. And one of the things they like to emphasize is the fact that, the Kandarian demons and stuff are really able to manipulate their surroundings and the stuff they're possessing. And that includes, these people they're inhabiting. And so once someone's gone like full Deadite, once the possession has progressed to the point of like no return, they can force these bodies into like monstrous shapes.
Yeah, and it looks really cool.
We kind of actually get a hint of that at one point in the movie where we see a Deadite like fully transformed into like a monster. I mean, we see that twice. One's like I don't know, like a gargoyle style thing.
Yeah.
And the other one's like a weird
like long
serpent neck
snake thing.
But point being, all of that is done with claymation. And when the Deadites transform, a lot of the times they transform their head into this more monstrous shape.
Yeah.
And the makeup description that we've described in this film with like the more skull-like appearance is kind of this middle ground between the monstrous heads we see in these claymation segments and a normal human skull.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of why they went with that instead of the more rotted, sallow look.
Yeah, and it makes sense if you're looking at like just a progression style thing and to keep it consistent.
The other reason is it's just more distinct, and it marks like if you have a character who changes back and forth a lot, it makes it more obvious.
Yeah.
Aside from that, though, I think the practical effects in this film are really good.
They are really good. I have one thing I want to talk about specifically about the practical effects, if you're okay with that.
Yeah, can I mention something really quick?
Sure.
Might be the same thing.
Okay.
They use a bunch of miniature shots in this film.
No, I wasn't going to talk about that, but it is fucking sweet.
I'll bring them up. They use them. The big reason I could see is very early on, there is a claymation sequence outside involving Linda's dead body.
Yep.
And because it's shot outside, they had to do, obviously they didn't want to make a human size
Linda prosthetic. That would be crazy.
doll thing. So it's a miniature, and then they had to make a miniature of the outside. And since they had a miniature of the outside, they just use it throughout the film whenever they have to do more complex shots.
Yeah. And it looks really good.
Looks really good. They also do some miniature stuff with the trees to make them moving look more realistic.
Yeah, man. The moving trees in this look really good.
Assumedly, there's miniature work with all the animation stuff, I assume.
I would assume so.
Which makes it all fairly impressive, because that means they have to do some shots where it's like layering the miniature over top normal footage.
Yeah,
Because there's definitely some sequences where it's Ash fighting
something that isn't there, but it's overlaid, and it looks really cool. It looks really cool.
And then all the props are redone, too.
Yeah.
For instance, the Kandarian dagger and the Book of the Dead, which do carry over into this film, just look completely different.
Yeah.
And I do think they look better.
I don't know if I like the Kandarian dagger as much. I kind of like it more in the original.
I think the book definitely looks better.
The book definitely looks better. I don't know. I kind of prefer like the bone white, like bloody, gross, like almost alive look of the original Kandarian dagger a lot.
So the only difference between the Kandarian dagger in this film and that film is that this one has a serrated blade.
And the other one had like an actual smooth blade.
And the other one had a metal blade.
Yeah.
And what the difference is, and I know this because, again, I've mentioned this before, Bob got me the props from this movie, both the Necronomicon and the Kandarian dagger. And the difference between the Kandarian dagger in this film and the original is that in the original film, it's a metal blade, and in this one, it's a spine blade.
Yeah.
It's someone's spine. So it's more matte. I think this blade actually fits the world better.
Probably.
And I like the change up because the whole blade's bone and everything.
Yeah.
And so it was always a little out of place that it was metal.
Fair enough.
But I thought that was it's kind of a weird change.
Yeah. No,
But
it is.
I do like it. They look
Sure.
higher budget and everything.
True. They do look I would give you that. I really like the like fleshy look of the top of the blade in the first one. Because it's
Oh,
like bony
The
and
top
it's like
of-
bone white.
oh, this one was too.
Was
the
it?
top was like identical.
But it wasn't but it looks fleshy and natural in the first one. In this one it looks like
I think there was
hard
just-
and rigid and doesn't feel like it has like give.
No, they're about the same. I'm just telling you. I think what you might be thinking of is I think there's more space between the bone pieces
Maybe.
on this one, and the space in between is black, so it looks more like an actual handle. What were you gonna mention though?
While we're on this topic of props and stuff, I'll shelve that till later because I feel like we'll talk about it and it'll come up naturally. And I was kind of getting ahead of myself. The cabin in this, it looks very different.
Oh yeah, I mean it's a completely different cabin.
It's a completely different cabin with a bunch of extra rooms and stuff.
Mostly because it's an actual like set.
Yeah. But it looks cool. Like it still maintains that like Evil Dead original cabin vibe while just giving you more space to play with and doing other stuff.
It is, however, much nicer and less abandoned.
It is much nicer and less abandoned, but that makes more sense based on the plot of this film rather than the first film.
Yeah, in this continuity, there's people actually using it
Yeah.
and not just renting it out. Which, to be honest, makes more sense than in the original, where it's like, where the heck did this
Where did they even hear about this cabin?
recorder come from?
That too.
Well, no, it makes sense where they heard from it. Some guy rented it to him.
Oh,
but,
yeah.
like, who just left this evil book and this dagger and this recording
Yeah.
from this professor there?
Yeah. You know what's crazy? In this one, they don't ever even actually like mention the Kandarian dagger. It just appears and they just have it.
Yeah.
Which is so much funnier. Because in the original, like, the professor mentions, like, the book and the knife when he's on the recorder.
Whatever.
But in this one, they just, like, I've got a knife!
Again, it's kind of the whole thing where it's like, Sam Raimi knows it's the sequel.
Yeah.
So stuff is just going to be carried over.
I mean, that's fair.
Now, outside of tone and practical effects, I mean, I think the next thing to talk about is the characters.
Sure.
Obviously, Bruce Campbell's Ash Williams.
Yep.
He does great in this film.
Really good.
I will say there is a difference in characterization. So in the first movie, he is more of an everyman character, which I know you really liked. But to fit the more exaggerated tone of this film, he is very much kind of an action hero style character,
Yeah, which is also sweet.
which is sweet in a very different way.
Yes.
He's just a lot more confident, a lot more gung-ho and fighty. And I think that change had to work if you want to sell this as a, I don't know, more lighthearted, action-heavy movie.
Yeah, I mean, you have to. Because I think I said it during the outtakes, but I was like, is this the same character? Like, if you were to put the Ash from the first film in this movie, it just doesn't work. Like, the vibe does not match.
I think you can explain the difference away, though, from Trauma.
Yeah. And getting dead-eyed.
Yeah. There's Linda, who's basically not a character.
No,
But
dies,
it's a different actress, so should
Yeah.
mention that.
dies immediately, becomes a deadite.
There's the professor. I don't know his...
It's like
His
Nobi or something, right?
Nobi's their last name.
Mm.
I think they just call him Professor Nobi. He's the owner of the cabin, the guy on the tape. His wife, Henrietta Nobi. And then their daughter. Did you catch her name? Is it Annie? It's
It
Annie.
is Annie.
Annie
She made
Nobi.
a joke about it.
Jake, which I think is her boyfriend.
I forgot about him.
He dies very quickly. Bobby Joe, and I think it's Ed Getley is the last guy.
I didn't know that guy's name.
I didn't either. They're all there.
Yeah, I'm gonna be honest. Only out of all of them, only Annie really
Matters.
matters or has any good character stuff.
But I'm going to put this out here. She only matters because of Deus Ex Machina reasons of
Yeah,
she knows how to read Ancient Sumerian, Kandarian, whatever they choose it to be in this film,
yeah,
and that's helpful later. And to be honest, I think the only ones whose name you really know throughout the film is Bobby Joe,
yep.
because
They just keep saying it.
they keep saying Bobby Joe, and it's really funny. Point being, outside of Ash, everyone else is bodies.
Yeah,
And
they're
that
fodder for the Deadites.
that really does show how different this film is,
Mhm.
because part of what made the first film so horrifying is how much we knew and empathized with these characters.
Yeah,
And in this
for
movie,
sure.
we just don't care. And
Yep.
so their deaths can be humorous. It's kind of the same thing that happens in late slasher films,
Yeah.
like Friday the 13th, when you get into like 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 and 7 and all that stuff, where it's like, I don't care about these characters
Nope.
anymore. I care about this one thing, and everything else doesn't matter.
I care about seeing a Deadite annihilate these people. And that's it.
Exactly. And
That's
so
all I care about.
it does really work for that. I do think it makes this film, in some essences, weaker,
Yeah.
at least from emotional tone. Like, it's still entertaining, but it doesn't have that emotional impact that the first one does.
Yeah.
Which sucks, because there is a couple sequences where the movie needs Ash to be emotional. Not in the I'm in pain way, but in the kind of like, oh, Linda kind of way. And
Yeah.
I do think those suffer for it.
For sure. I also think, while we're on character stuff, the fact that Ash, like, we lose all of the pretense of the first film for Ash kind of sucks, because it means, like, we only get for this film, like, technically canon, the only death he actually saw was Linda's. We don't get any of the, like, him suffering with what's his face from the first film. What's his name? Scott. Like,
Scott, yeah.
all the Scott stuff in the first film. Watching his sister get turned into a Deadite from the first film.
Yeah, no Scott, Cheryl, Shelley.
We lose all of that stuff, and it makes the like, Ash going, like, crazy. It doesn't hit as hard because we don't have all of that extra oomph behind it.
That's why I said you kind of have to choose, like, what continuity you have going on in your mind.
Yeah.
And that's also why I think they're really nice to watch back to back, is because you can jump off, okay, this is how Ash is at the end of that film,
Yeah.
and into this one. Is there anything else you want to talk about here, or do you want to get into kind of discussing the Deadites in this film?
We can talk Deadites.
Okay. I think the big thing to note in this film is the first half of it, Ash is basically by himself.
Yeah. It's a one-man show.
And, again, he really has to sell it with that physical humor, which is great. But I do want to emphasize that kind of the big thing here is the Deadites torturing him. I said the Deadites, whatever the Kandarian demons are, torturing Ash. That's kind of like what most of this film is. And that allows for a lot of really cool, like, effects work.
Yeah.
And stuff. There's a couple, like, I don't know, side-by-side shots and dummy scenes with Ash and, like, himself, which is cool. They have props move around, which looks really cool. I think my favorite one is, we'll just say, something that is stuffed moves.
It looks really good. No, I really like all of the solo Ash stuff, because it doesn't solve. It pads my problem that I literally just talked about, where we lose all of the emotional impact of Ash seeing all of his friends die horribly, by then him just getting absolutely annihilated by the Deadites, like Kandarian demons, and, like, getting fucked with immensely. And it's really cool, because they do stuff that is similar to the first film, but different, where, like, Ash will be shooting the shotgun from the first film. Well, it's a double barrel now.
It's double barrel.
But it's essentially the same gun.
Twice as
supposed
good.
to be. Yeah. At, like, the Deadites, because they're fucking with it, and then just, like, blood will just explode out of the cabin wall for no reason, and then, like, cover him.
Yeah, and I mean,
it's like a callback to what they did in the first film with when he would attack the Deadites and they would just spew whatever goo all over him.
I think that's what I was going to get at here. It's like, you know, there's some really original gags of ways of torture Ash in this film, but there's also some rehashes that are just boosted up to 200% because they have a bigger budget now.
Yep.
And I think all of that's really cool.
It is really cool.
I will emphasize, though, that they really do emphasize one thing messing with Ash, one particular special Deadite close to my heart.
It is Ben's favorite Deadite.
And before I kind of get into that, I think we need to mention that there's going to be some big spoilers here.
Well, yeah.
I'm not going to go in explaining too much of the film, but to be honest, we're going to kind of have to ruin some stuff. But a major emphasis for this film that is a little off is the idea that Ash kind of gets possessed and fights it off.
Yeah.
You know, we see the very end of The Evil Dead in this movie, where Ash, the spirit, comes at him, and we watch it launch him. And the reveal is, in that moment, the spirit had possessed him until it becomes sunrise, and then it frees him. And that's the first time Ash gets possessed and then unpossessed.
Yeah.
It kind of happens twice more.
Mm-hmm.
One time he gets bitten on the hand, and we watch the infection spread just through his hand until he chops it off. And then his hand just starts scurrying around like
And being a little bastard.
the hand from, is it from the Addams Family?
Yeah.
Which, again, my favorite Deadite.
It's really funny. Because
The sequences with Ash and his Deadite hand remind me of a Tom and Jerry cartoon.
they're so funny.
And they're just fun. And then one time at the end of the film, where he just switches into Deadite mode again. And I do want to mention it here, not only for the hand stuff, which is great. Probably
It's
the
fantastic.
best bits of physical comedy are when the hand is
Mhm.
still connected to him. But because it adds some weird world building stuff
Yeah.
of like Ash is able to throw off the Deadites.
Which
And-
we've not seen anyone do before.
I think there's two reasons for that. First of all, and this is probably the most straightforward answer, is that they're fucking with him.
Oh.
Honestly, it is unclear, but the fact that the Deadites had to be summoned again when Ash got to the cabin,
Mm-hmm.
even though they were summoned by the professor before he got there,
Yeah.
at least to me, implies that if the Deadites killed him, which I assume that's what happens if they take him over, they essentially would have been forced out of the world and back into the
Interesting.
book because there's nothing left for them to
fuck with.
fuck with. And so by not like fully taking him over until more people arrived, not only were they keeping their enjoyment going by getting to torture him, but they were also keeping themselves active. So that would be partially my justification. But the other reason, and again, kind of a spoilers here, is because Ash is special. That's it.
I was going to say plot armor.
It's not even plot. Well, it is technically plot armor. Ash is the chosen one. That's it.
Yeah. That gets revealed.
There is some hints throughout the film. It relates to Army of Darkness. I think that's as much as I want to say, but about halfway through the film, they give
Yeah.
you kind of a major hint of why he can't be possessed. It's the reason I'll give you here is fate, and we'll leave it at that, because I think that's a pretty
Sure.
decent example. And I think at the very least it makes him not being able to be possessed fully, or at least being able to fight it off, make more sense.
Yeah.
And at least not feel like a complete violation of this world's rules.
I mean, it does feel like a complete violation, but also, like, movies require pieces to work, and this is just a piece that makes it work.
Yeah, but again, it's one of those things where, like, when you build rules, you shouldn't violate them unless it's the chosen one.
Yeah, which...
And then that's what makes them the chosen one, is they can violate the rules.
yeah.
And I think they do a good job establishing Ash in that role and then justifying it. So, you know what? I think it's whatever. But
Yeah.
it is important to note, because otherwise, if they didn't give a good justification, it does make the Deadites a little less scary.
Yeah, because there's just one guy that can always, like, fight them off.
But it's only just one guy, so
It is only just one guy.
and
But they refuse to kill his stupid ass.
he suffers a lot for it. Well, again, that's why I say there's also some fate being used as an explanation,
Oh.
because they technically couldn't,
Kill him because he is the chosen one.
because
Which
he's fated. Yeah.
I hate that.
Uh,
Like, I don't hate it, but it's just such a weak way to do it. You know what I mean? Like, there are so many more interesting,
well, no,
cooler ways to deal
they
with
couldn't
this.
kill him not because he's the chosen one, but because of. All right, here's the big spoiler. Time travel shenanigans. We already know he lives through this, so he can't die.
I know.
So
But it
that's
just,
just
like,
how stuff works. Anything else you want to talk about?
yeah, we haven't talked about... We talked about how the Deadites look. We have not talked about the, like, deaths in this film. I don't know if I like them as much, because we don't see nearly as much happen in this movie.
Yeah.
And that is like my only issue with this film, is in the first movie, we saw people get fucking annihilated. We saw people getting, like, their arms bitten off, like, chewed through, gnawed on, fucked up. I almost threw up. It was gross. It was disgusting. It
We
was
actively
fun.
see a bodily dismemberment.
Yes, we see all kinds of crazy shit happen. In this film, the most we get is, like, blood spray.
Yep. Everything's basically off screen, at least implied with shadows. Sometimes it's not even that.
Yeah.
Sometimes we don't even see the blood spray. We just have an implication that something happened. One character gets thrown into something, and that's all we see.
Yep. And, like, that sucks.
And hell, even the blood we get isn't always blood. Sometimes it's just black oil
well, they do that in the first one, too,
or
sometimes.
green goo.
The green goo is new.
No, but see, they did it in the first movie consistently. It was
True.
always a possessed Deadite because
With-
they were basically a rotting corpse.
Mm-hmm.
In this film, it was just used as a way to have less blood on screen.
Yeah.
And I did read about this.
Oh,
There is kind of a
interesting.
reason. But I want to say, I do think it matches the tone of this movie better.
That is what I was going to say.
I think they could only get away with not having the high levels of gore in this film because of the more comedic tone.
Yeah.
But I would have preferred the same gore levels as
I
the first
also
film.
would have preferred the same gore levels from the first film.
From my understanding, what happened, and I forgot to write this down, so I'm sorry if I misspeak here some, but my understanding is Sam Raimi was trying to get a lower score. I think he was aiming for potentially a PG-13 kind of score.
You could totally get it with PG-13
so
here.
it could get into more places. And so he specifically cut a bunch of stuff and kept things implied and switched out blood for like green stuff or black stuff. Essentially, he made a PG-13 movie.
I was going to say the only thing that's not PG is some of the Deadites are naked.
But even then, you don't see genitalia or anything.
Yeah.
They're
true.
just weird
Raw.
and fleshy.
Yeah.
They're not completely human. And so again, and you can show nudity in PG-13 movies.
Oh, can you?
You can show like breasts and stuff,
I didn't know that.
right? I believe
I
that
wouldn't
is
think so.
technically true. At least it's technically true for the 80s.
That's also
'Cause
probably
I've
fair.
definitely seen 80s movies that are PG-13 or PG with partial nudity in it. That's the aside. Point being is he was aiming for a lower rating, but he ended up getting screwed over and given an R rating anyways.
That sucks.
Because I think because of how much like blood and stuff there's in it.
But I just am a huge fan of seeing people get eviscerated and stuff, and that's like one of my favorite things about the first film.
Yeah.
And the fact that this film is lacking that sucks. But I completely agree. I think the fact that it went for a more comedic tone and we get like exaggerated ways people die. Like there's a scene. I'm gonna spoil this right now because I'm not gonna say who it is. There's a scene where someone gets pulled into the basement and literally it looks like a wood chipper annihilates them and blood just comes spewing out like buckets and buckets of blood. And that's funny and it works.
Yeah, it's the biggest disappointment for me
It
with this
is
film
For me too, man.
because I wouldn't necessarily say the lighter gore and the comedic tone in this film works. I'd more say the film gets away with the lighter gore
Because of the comedic
because
tone.
of the comedic
Yeah.
tone.
Yeah.
It's honestly a big issue for me because the first film is well known for how intense it is
Mm-hmm.
from a graphic like gore standpoint, and for this film to be essentially nothing is not only very disappointing, but it just feels very different in a way I don't necessarily like.
Yeah.
Like I said, it's almost a PG-13 feeling film in a lot
Fair.
of ways.
I will also put out
They even avoid swearing in some weird
I was
places.
about to say they don't swear in this film, which is something I was going to bring up. But I think the last thing I want to talk about is we've kind of talked about the monster effects a little bit with how the Deadites look. There are some non-Deadite, well, there are technically probably Deadites, non-Deadite creatures in this movie, and they look fucking sweet. Like genuinely some of the coolest shit I've seen in a movie. It just looks so cool.
Yeah, I mean, if you're talking stuff like that, this is technically a Deadite, but Henrietta,
True.
so the professor's wife, is kind of the main Deadite.
Yeah.
It's the one we see the most of. And it's a pretty elaborate costume.
And you can tell that they upped the budget because she's in like full on, like it has to be a suit or something.
Yeah, it's a full suit. Obviously, that is not the Henrietta actor who plays her in her human form.
Yeah.
That is a completely different person. In fact, we talked about him earlier. It's Ted Raimi.
That's fucking hilarious.
Yeah, so Ted Raimi is the Deadite version of Henrietta. Apparently, that suit was atrocious.
Oh, probably. It's huge.
It was super hot, and he sweated a bunch, and they would have to drain the sweat from the suit.
Ew.
Actually, one of the grossest scenes in the entire movie, and it's just like one clip. And I think it's sad that this is the grossest thing in the movie, but maybe it's because it's real. There's a sequence where Henrietta is hanging sideways,
Yeah.
and you can see the sweat pour out of her ear in this white, like,
Ew.
stream.
That's so fucking
'Cause
gross.
It was just so hot in that suit that Ted Raimi was sweating that much.
Oh my god. Ew. That's foul, man. Oh, I while we're here, sorry. I did I say that was the last thing?
Yes, you did.
No, one more thing. And it's just a cool thing. It's not even like it's a cool thing that is extra. Of course, they're fighting the Deadites in this cabin. The cabin gets fucked up, but they maintain the the damage throughout the film and the stains and stuff. So it's so cool watching the cabin be like fairly pristine when they get there, and by the end of the movie, this thing is a fucking shit show. And it's so sweet. Like, Ash has put multiple shotgun holes in the walls. There's like chainsaw marks in the walls. There's blood everywhere. There's green goo. There's black stuff. I love when a movie maintains continuity in a space, in an environment like that, and it all like sticks and stays, and it's really cool.
Yeah, honestly, for how good of continuity it maintains, it kind of sucks that it didn't maintain continuity from the first movie.
Oh, that would be so
'Cause
fucking crazy.
Just getting to see the cabin, because it is the same cabin, just absolutely wrecked, and just there's rotting corpses everywhere and stuff,
it would have been top.
just peak. That being said, that's kind of all I have here.
Yeah, same.
Oh, except for mentioning the ending of this film is so rad.
Oh, it's sweet. It's so cool.
Kind of the coolest way to end this film ever.
Yeah. Yeah, it is so cool.
And it is, if there's one part of this movie I like better than the original film,
It's the ending.
it's the ending.
Yeah.
Because the ending of the original film is kind of whatever.
It is kind of whatever.
But this one is just the perfect build up to the action movie that this is essentially kind of become.
Yeah.
All right. Recommendations.
If you are a fan of funny horror movies, such as, and I said this during the movie, I think this is very Hatchet-esque in a lot of ways. Minus all of the gore of Hatchet, but add in the funny bits.
I think that's fair because Hatchet has a very close tone, except more extreme gore.
And this film doesn't have that, but it is very much in the same vein.
I mean, yeah, we were watching this movie and you were like, you know what movie's really similar to this? Hatchet. And I was like, wow, I wonder why.
Yeah. So if you're a fan of Hatchet and you haven't seen this one, check it out. I think they're a pretty good matchup.
It feels shocking if you haven't seen Hatchet.
Yeah.
Well, if you've seen Hatchet and haven't seen this.
Which
this
is
is
where I came in.
much more famous. Like, you have a reason. It's because you watch horror movies for the podcast and then nothing else.
Yeah.
Not by your own volition, but because that's the rules.
Yeah,
But
them's the rules and I hate them.
them's the rules you made for yourself. If you were just a normal person, that's really weird.
Yeah. If you're watching the Evil Dead franchise, this is the second one. Check it out. I would suggest watching the first one and this one back to back.
Like I said, very tonally different,
But
so is the third one.
I can tell.
No, the third one's different from this.
No, I know. That's
this
what I'm
one's
saying.
different from the first one. Yeah, it's a weird trilogy, but point being, some people like this one better.
Yeah.
Than the first one.
If you like Bruce Campbell, I'd say he really steals the show in this one. He's by far the best character.
Oh, yeah.
Like, in the first one, he's the best character, but you can maybe argue that there's some, like, other stuff happening that can be worked in. This one, he steals the show. He's incredible.
I would argue that this is really the film that makes him super iconic.
Yeah.
As an actor.
For sure.
And as, like, Ashley Williams as a character.
Yeah. I think those are my recommendations.
Okay. Like Bob said, if you're watching the Evil Dead franchise, this is the second one. So check that out if you haven't seen it. But, I mean, I think the big recommendation for this film is if you're looking for, like, a horror film that's also pretty fun, so you can watch it with friends and I think have a good time.
Oh, that's a good
This
one.
is just a really great film for that. Also, if you like Sam Raimi, this really feels like
Also
Sam
fair.
Raimi. I will say the first film is just really dark and gruesome, and it just lacks a lot of comedy elements that I think we associate with some of Sam Raimi's later works.
Yeah.
I mean, not to come back to
No,
it.
stop.
Spider-Man.
Okay.
What were you thinking I was going to mention?
No. What are you
No,
going
but-
to mention specifically?
Spider-Man has its serious moments, but it also has that weird kind of humorous vibe to it at
Okay.
times. And I think this film really captures Sam Raimi's ability to be both a serious writer and a comedic writer.
Yeah, totally.
And I think it's a really good example of that.
I thought you were going to specifically bring up something from Spider-Man, and I was going to get mad at you.
What, Goth Spider-Man?
Yes. I hate fucking edgy Tobey Maguire.
I don't know why you do.
I hate him.
It's so fun, especially when he does that weird dance
that
thing.
weird dance he does. I can't stand it.
But it has that same vibe.
It does.
As this movie.
It does have that same vibe. I just hate that specifically.
Peak Raimi. Also, pizza time.
Stop.
There's so many good memes in that. Again, I love those early comic book movies. They're just so weird. If you like those, you might like this. Because, Spider-Man, Sam Raimi.
Yeah, I guess.
This is definitely almost PG-13, so
It is almost PG-13.
if you're a younger child, you could probably get away with this one with having not seen the first one.
True. Don't watch the first one if you're a young child.
Definitely not.
Yeah.
All right, rate it.
I told this to Ben during the movie. I think I am in the camp of liking this one more. But I don't know if that means I want to give it a 5 like I gave the first one. Because this one definitely has weaker elements tied to it, right? And it lacked some things I liked about the first film. But also, you said it's just a very different film.
Mm-hmm.
So comparing them is difficult. So I think I will give this movie a 5 as well, but for very, very different reasons. This movie, much more fun, like haha good time movie. Less like giving it a 5 for the practical effects and for the gore and stuff. I'm giving this movie a 5 because I genuinely just enjoyed it more. It was a much more fun time, and a lot of the problems I have with the film are covered up by the fact that it was very funny and enjoyable to watch and a good time with friends. And I think that's why I have to give it a 5 personally.
Okay. I'm in a weird boat with this film because, like, I love the Evil Dead franchise. I think
Sure.
it's great. But this film isn't necessarily my favorite.
I mean,
Of
I
the
totally
franchise.
understand that.
And it really comes down to kind of the comedic elements. I think they're very, very funny. But at the end of the day, when you look at how much this film lacks, like, gore and stuff,
Yeah.
this film feels a lot more lighthearted than I want.
Fair.
And, that's an issue for me in a lot of ways. Not to say I dislike it. I don't dislike it. In fact, I find the movie pretty funny. And Bruce Campbell in this is great. It's probably one of my favorite performances from him of all time. And I think a lot of the effects in it are also really, really good. But I usually find myself preferring the first movie just because, besides its charm, I just do think it does the whole horror aspect better.
Totally fair.
And if I'm coming into the Evil Dead franchise, that's what I'm looking for. Because, like,
Mhm.
I love some of the comedic aspects of it, especially coming from the Deadites.
Oh, yeah. They're
because
so funny.
When they're funny, I think it works really well because they're doing it in a mean-spirited way.
Mm-hmm.
But I do expect some nastiness. That's what I want. Point being, I find myself in a hard spot when I'm rating this because in a lot of ways it's really technically impressive. And
Agreed.
my main gripe with the film is the lack of gore, and that there's reasons behind that. It's kind of editing stuff and trying to get by ratings board and stuff. And I don't know how much I can take away points for that. Not to mention, it's just a very different movie
That's why I had to adjust
than
my
the
scale.
first film. And so I don't know. I think for personal enjoyment, I'd probably put it somewhere like a 4, 4.5.
Yeah.
Because there's aspects of it where I really, really like it. Comedy, Bruce Campbell, practical effects, at least on the animation.
Oh, and all the claymation stuff looks baller.
Because the claymation stuff is great.
Oh, it's so cool.
But again, it's hard to compare them because they're just so different. And again, that's going to be a problem I have when we eventually cover Army of Darkness too, because it's just like, this is just also completely different from the first two films that came apart. But at the end of the day, I think I'll just go with a 5 as well, because much like the first film, well, this film isn't as iconic to like the horror industry and creating tropes as the first film is. This film is just super iconic to the franchise itself. It just really establishes a lot of the humor that we see throughout the rest of the franchise, as well as how the character of Ash starts to act and who he becomes. And I think for that reason alone, I really got to give it that extra points into the kind of 5 category from a 4.5 or maybe a 4 I might give it, just based on my own personal enjoyment.
I'm actually really surprised you gave it a 5.
Yeah, it's a hard one for me. Because it's like, I think objectively this film is really good.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of fixes a lot of the issues that I had with the first film while being more palatable for a general audience.
Yeah.
It's just, I wanted something more from it sometimes.
No, and I get that.
But
'cause
it's
I feel
also
a very similar way.
Really good.
Yeah, that's the thing is like, yeah, it lacked some parts I wanted, but it was still really great.
Yeah, I always feel kind of like, I watch this movie and every time I watch it, I'm like, I don't know. I feel like I took a misstep where it's like, I got there
Yeah.
and it was great, but I'm like,
That's funny.
I feel like I tripped on the way.
Just like Ash in this movie a
Yeah.
lot.
Just down the stairs.
Down the stairs, into
And then
the
some
bookcase.
fat bitch grabbed me and pulled me through.
God. The amount of concussions that
Oh
Ash
my
gets in this
God.
movie, I just like, he should not.
That might explain his personality difference
Yeah,
right
his
there.
brain is rattling around in his skull because it's loose.
3 times its normal size.
Yeah, like bashing his skull into everything in sight. Jesus Christ. Okay.
All right. Well, on that note, I guess we're going to go to the outtakes.
Yeah. We'll see you guys in a minute. Hello, everybody. Welcome to the outtake section for this episode of Beware the Board. I hope you're enjoying our review of Evil Dead 2 so far. I really like this movie. I think it's super duper fun. But without further ado, let's get into the outtakes. This first clip is Ben being right for the first time ever. Damn you. You
What?
were right. What's going on right now?
Do you need me to explain it to you?
No, I don't want you to.
Okay.
But I'm very confused.
Well, I marked it for the audience so they'll know you're confused.
Why are we back here? Where are all the dead bodies? Also, why does he look the exact same? This next clip is my reaction to the Deadites finally making a physical appearance in the film. Ugh! What the fuck? These things are fucking disgusting! Ah! Kick that motherfucker! Oh no! Random man whose name I don't know. Oh, other guy whose name I don't know. He is... This next clip is our reaction to a rather unfortunate repeat scene from the first film. She's dead! Oh no, she's not dead. She's about to die though.
Ah. A lone woman running into the woods.
I'm sure nothing bad could... Not again. There's no way it'll happen again, right? Ben! They can't do this 2 movies in a row. I'm asking for your help.
Hey, look, some vines.
Stop. Stop. It's not funny. It's fucked up.
It is that.
I know it's 1987, but come on, guys. Fuck.
I thought we've learned a lot in 6
Yeah,
years.
bro. Oh, trees! That fucking looked sweet. No, stop! Stop it! No! No. Oh my god. Round 2. This is fucked up. Oh god, her mouth. I will say, it looks a lot better this time. It's a
Yeah.
lot more impressive visually.
Oh, look at the...
Oh my god! Fucking Jesus Christ! Okay, at least she's not getting... Yeah. We're in the clear so far. Her pants are still on. Is he gonna run into a tree at turbo speed? We don't get to see what happened to her? Because if she had got run into that tree at turbo speed and just ripped in half, that would have been fucking sweet.
That's essentially what happened.
This next clip is me making a very astounding realization. Had a guy with a chainsaw hand? Is that the plot of Army of Darkness? He goes back in time.
Remember earlier when you were like, if there's fucking time travel, I'm gonna
Holy
lose my
shit! Hi, everybody. Welcome back. I hope you enjoyed the outtakes. Do we have any announcements, Ben?
No, we're done.
We're done. All the stuff is out.
Except.
No, hold on.
Except.
What are you about to say?
Unholy Trinity is probably going to come out at some
Oh,
point.
I
guys.
haven't even touched those. We're too busy.
Well, no, we haven't recorded the last 2,
No, I know, but I have one of them.
but we have one of them, and then we're going to have to record those other 2. Bob said he's not going to release any of those till we've recorded all 3 of them.
Yeah, because then I can edit all of them and it could just come out, and I don't have to
So
stress
it's
about it.
probably not going to be a couple weeks until those come out, but we're going to try and get those done
soonish.
hopefully during this season. They're probably going to come out next season, but
But we'll probably record them sometime this season.
yeah. So
Because I'm going to be honest, guys. I don't know if you guys have noticed or realized, we've been recording at least 2 a day. when we record.
No, not 2 a day. 2 every time we record.
2. That's what I mean. At least 2 a day when we record.
2 a day was back when we were doing convention prep, and that
Was hell.
Yeah.
So like we're really trying to get all the stuff we need to get done recorded so we can actually release it.
yeah.
We've been today we're doing 3.
And whose fault is that?
Fuck you. It's not my fault.
It is your fault.
You built it. You didn't have to put these movies
I
together.
kind of had to though.
No, you didn't. You
Bob,
didn't have to do
we
anything.
were halfway through Evil Dead 2 and you went, "Can we just watch Army of Darkness now?"
I did say that,
I
but
don't care if we have to watch 4 movies.
But you said no,
Yeah, because I don't have the notes for it.
and I said then we can just watch it for funsies, and he said we can't do that. This is what happens when I'm not allowed to watch horror movies except for on the podcast.
Exactly. However, once we watch Army of Darkness, I think you can go watch the TV show.
Oh, that's sweet.
So-
Hell yeah, dude.
Anyways, aside from that little announcement, usual spiel. Check us out wherever you get your podcasts, Spotify, Apple Podcast. If you're checking us out on those platforms, please give us a quick review or a rating. That really helps us out getting recommended to other people on those platforms. You could also maybe recommend us to a friend, IRL. That's kind of cool. We'd appreciate that. Otherwise, we're also on YouTube, which, while not great for audio-only content, is really nice for us because we can see your engagement, looking at views on videos, likes, subscriptions, stuff like that. Really helps us out in knowing how many people watch us. Additionally, YouTube has a couple tools you might use. There's a bell button, which gets you notified whenever we post something new. So whenever we upload something like, I don't know, that Unholy Trinity videos, we don't tell you in advance. That's how you'll know. There's also a search button, which lets you search keywords in all our videos. So if you're looking for a movie title to see if we've covered something, that's an easy way to check, especially since we've covered like 151 movies at this point.
Are we at 151 yet?
151, right?
I think this is 151 because I made a Pokemon joke earlier about it.
Yes.
So I was counting up the videos.
There's now as many movies covered, as many videos covered, podcast episodes covered, as
There are Pokemon.
original Pokemon.
Original Pokemon, yes. There are more. We'll never reach the number of Pokemon.
Oh, God, no.
No, that's impossible. With how many come out every generation?
Like every year, essentially?
Yeah, we would never ever catch up, unless we really went hard.
Yeah, hard into our graves. We'll be the Evil Dead then. But that being said, the big thing with YouTube is it's one of the 2 major places to communicate with us at. You can do that in the comment section of a specific video if there's something you want to talk to us about on that episode, or you can go over to Twitter at @BewareTheBoard and go talk with Bob. Maybe read some scripts.
There it is. I was waiting on your ass to say something.
Kanda.
No, please, I can't do it. I can't handle it. Okay, he stopped. We're not gonna have any deadites. It's fine.
It'll summon out the worst in him.
Oof. Okay, that was a little tough. Like Ben said, check us out on Twitter at @BewareTheBoard. It's where we post updates about the show, information about the show. Basically, if there's anything you want to know about the show, it goes on our Twitter. On Mondays, we post a spoiler post for that week's worth of episodes, which is a hidden movie cover that you can reveal, so you can watch the movie before we do. So when you listen to the episodes, you don't get any spoilers, and we're being vague about stuff. You know what we're talking about. Then on Fridays, or whatever the episode goes live, I always post a link to the episode. So if you've missed an upload or want to know when something went up, there's always a link on our Twitter. Last thing, we do short form content sometimes, maybe, kinda. I haven't made one in a while, and I'm sorry. I've been very busy considering, what's that, 4 episodes? 3 episodes this week, 1 on Monday, 1 on next Friday, and then 3 more on the block whenever we get them recorded. So I haven't really had time to make short form content. But if you like short form content and want to support the show, check us out at @BewareTheBoard on TikTok and on YouTube Shorts. Ben, I think that's it.
All right, well, see you guys next time.
Yeah, we'll see you guys next time.